How's it going, everyone? Powerful I am. 50 the Mystic. Carrying on our little journey here that we've been walking on. Today we're getting into Genesis 32, verse 28, the verse where Jacob's name becomes Israel. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. This verse is overflowing with symbolic and allegorical depth in itself. The declaration that Jacob will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel symbolizes the moment when an old identity dies and a new one is born. In allegory, Jacob represents the wounded self, the striving self, the self shaped by survival, insecurity, competition, and generational patterns. Israel represents the awakened self, the empowered self, the self that has stepped into alignment, purpose, and divine authority itself. The shift in name symbolizes the moment every person must experience when they evolve from whose circumstances created them to who their destiny calls them to be. It's one of those age-old things, man. You know how it is. We always say, your current circumstances literally don't determine your future, even though people will tell you that's what defines you. And that is the plan half the time. Certain people want to stay in power. Being told you have power with God and with men symbolizes balance between the spiritual and physical realms. It means the inner battle has produced a person who can stand in both worlds. The spiritual world represents purpose, identity, and inner truth. The physical world represents action, responsibility, and influence. Israel symbolizes the human being who has unified both. The victory inside has now positioned him for victory outside. The phrase "and you have prevailed" symbolizes triumph not over an opponent but over the old self. In deeper symbolism, the wrestling match represents the intense confrontation between Jacob's ego and his higher nature. Prevailed means he has moved beyond fear, beyond old patterns, and beyond the internal conflict that long defined him. This is the moment when a person is no longer shaped by pain but by purpose. The new identity is not given as a reward for perfection but for perseverance. This verse symbolizes the universal journey of transformation. Everyone must confront their Jacob self. Everyone must wrestle with their inner shadow, and everyone who persists reaches the Israel moment. The point where destiny, identity, and purpose align into a new name that has been bestowed upon you. Because it reflects a profound neurological and psychological shift within Jacob's inner system. When the being declares that Jacob name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. This mirrors the moment when the brain undergoes a deep identity reconfiguration. Identity in itself, you need to know, is not just a concept. It is a network of neural pathways created by repeated thoughts, emotional responses, memories, and learned behaviors. Jacob's old name represents the old system, a pattern of survival-based thinking, fear-based decision-making, and competitive self-preservation. This identity operated from limbic system dominance, where emotional reactions and past wounds shaped his behavior. The naming of Israel symbolizes the emergence of a new neural network. Israel represents a self-concept rooted in empowerment, alignment, and higher purpose. This shift reflects the movement from limbic survival patterns into prefrontal cortex leadership. The prefrontal cortex governs clarity, self-awareness, emotional regulation, and long-term vision in the person themselves. Jacob's struggle has activated this higher function. The old neurological patterns have been disrupted. A new identity has been encoded through the intense emotional and physical experience of wrestling. The phrase "you have power with God and with men" reflects integration between the higher mind and the practical mind. They are working in harmony. They're working in tandem now. In human anatomy terms, this symbolizes harmony between the intuitive centers, the rational mind, and the emotional body. It represents the alignment of internal systems that were once fragmented. The struggle has unified them. The declaration that he has prevailed reflects the process of neural rewiring. Breakthrough occurs when old circuits weaken and new ones strengthen through persistence. Jacob's internal victory marks the moment when his brain accepts the new identity structure. This verse represents the psychological rebirth, where the mind releases the old story and steps into a new pattern that supports purpose, power, and conscious evolution. Because it mirrors a universal principle found throughout nature and cosmic law. Transformation requires the death of an old identity and the emergence of a new one. I've said this a couple of times before. You cannot want to be the old you and expect new outcomes. It is blasphemy in itself. As Einstein even said, to do the same thing over and over again and expect new results is a form of insanity in itself. Aren't you insane every time you want different for your life, but nothing changes about you? When the being declares that Jacob will no longer be Jacob but Israel, it reflects the natural law of metamorphosis. In nature, no being transforms without shedding what it once was. A caterpillar dissolves inside the chrysalis before becoming a butterfly. A seed dies in the soil before becoming a tree. A snake sheds its skin to continue growing. Jacob's name change symbolizes this cosmic shedding. His old form has completed its cycle, and a new form has been activated. The phrase, "you have power with God and with men," reflects the law of alignment. In cosmic order, true power comes from harmony between inner and outer realms. Nature shows this through ecosystems that thrive only when internal balance meets external conditions. Jacob, now Israel, represents this alignment. His inner world has been purified through struggle, and now his outer world will reflect his elevated state. This is the cosmic principle of as within, so without. The declaration, "you have prevailed," reflects the law of endurance. In nature, everything strong endures. Pressure. Mountains are shaped through tectonic collision. Diamonds are formed under extreme heat. Trees deepen their roots through storms. Jacob's inner battle has produced spiritual strength, according to cosmic law. Endurance is the currency of elevation. Those who persist through darkness inherit the dawn. The name Israel itself aligns with another cosmic principle, calling forth a new destiny in the universe. Identity shapes reality. A star becomes what its core declares. A river becomes what its flow chooses. Jacob becomes Israel because he has reached the vibration of that name. This verse reveals that transformation is lawful, inevitable, and divinely aligned when the inner struggle is complete. It carries one of the most powerful and practical lessons for personal transformation. When the being tells Jacob that his name will no longer be Jacob but Israel, it shows that true change begins when you release the identity shaped by pain, survival, and old patterns. Many people want a new life but continue to live under an old name, an old story, or an old self-definition. This verse teaches that breakthrough requires letting go of an identity that keeps you in cycles of fear, striving, or self-doubt. Jacob's old name represented struggle, insecurity, chasing validation, and fighting for position. Your own Jacob's identity may be similar. It may include old wounds, limiting beliefs, destructive habits, trauma response, or narrative patterns that shape your behavior for years. The verse invites you to speak the truth. That identity may have helped you survive, but it cannot carry you into the future. The new name, Israel, represents stepping into your highest version. It symbolizes clarity, purpose, alignment, authority, and spiritual maturity. This means you must choose the identity that aligns with your calling rather than your past. Will you do what is called upon you for you to achieve what you want to achieve? You stop responding as the old version of yourself, that loser victim, that one who thinks life is happening to him instead of understanding that he's a conscious creator who life can happen through. And you begin acting, thinking, and speaking from the place you're growing into. The declaration that you have power with God and with people teaches that once your internal identity shifts, your external influence changes automatically. When you conquer the battles within yourself, you gain strength in your relationships, your decisions, and your purpose. Finally, the phrase "you have prevailed" teaches that your transformation does not come from perfection, but from perseverance. You may not have done everything right, but you did not quit. And that is enough to step into a new identity. This verse invites you to embrace who you are becoming and basically release who you were as a person at a point in time. And that is the key to transformation. And in the next one, we go a bit deeper as we get into Genesis 32, verse 29, a young preview of the next one. And Jacob asked him and said, "Tell me, I pray thee, thy name." And he said, "Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name?" And he blessed him there. Till next time, family, don't forget to like and subscribe.